Hi everyone and welcome to Power and Freedom. I'm Alana Hunt, founder of Power and Freedom, the page, and powerandfreedom.com. Thank you for joining me today. So today I wanted to follow on from a topic, I think it was last week, and I was talking about self-acceptance. And I kind of wanted to talk about this in a little bit more depth today. And for those of you who are watching in America, obviously it's the 17th anniversary of the 9/11 bombings today. And I think it draws our mind to events that we see as perhaps being evil or being harmful or destructive in some way. And I was a little hesitant to talk about this topic today, on such a day. But in actual fact, as I thought about the topic, it kind of made a lot of sense. So we're going to be talking about self-acceptance, kind of part two to self-acceptance. But what we're going to be talking about is embracing the dark side today. So Star Wars lets us know that, there's the force for good and there's the force for evil. But actually, both exist in all of us all of the time. So part of self-acceptance is actually bringing embracing that dark side, bringing some compassion, bringing some love to every single part of yourself, not just the parts that you like. So today, embracing the dark side, self-acceptance. There's a saying out there, if you follow the law of attraction, and it's what you resist persists. But the other part of that is what you deny in yourself shows up in another place. It shows up in the people you see, it shows up in the events around you. So when we deny the parts of ourselves that maybe we don't like quite as much, and we push them down and we pretend they're not there, and we act on this other level where we just, completely denying those parts of ourselves. So when we deny things in ourselves, we're not whole. And ultimately, to have a life that's on our terms, that we love, that is a full life, we have to be a complete person. And so what can happen is, as we deny, we're actually basically part of ourselves is not engaged in our lives. So I've talked on another live about the emotions that we want to experience and the emotions that we want to escape. And there's a lot of emotions that we want to escape. And in our desire to escape them, we push down parts of ourselves. We deny parts of ourselves that are really important for our wholeness. So what might some of those emotions be? We want to experience the good emotions, or the things we think of as good emotions, don't we? We want to experience love and joy and happiness and peace, and, those emotions that make us feel good. And so when the emotions that we see as negative, or that we label parts of ourselves as bad, or certain emotions as bad, we kind of want to push those away, deny that they're there, push them down, think positively, do whatever we can to kind of make all of that negativity and uncomfortable emotions disappear. So what might some of those emotions that we don't want to feel be? They might be things like anger, hate, jealousy, shame, anxiety. Those are some of the emotions that we often like to push away and kind of go, I don't want to experience these things. And here's the strange thing, that those emotions that you're trying to avoid or to escape, that you're deliberately choosing something else so that you don't have to experience those, or you're pushing them down, you're trapping them in your body, basically, because if you're not allowing them, I talked about the power of allowing last week, but if you're not allowing those emotions to come in and to go out, they're going to get stuck. And then they're going to have a massive impact on you. So we want to escape these emotions, the anger, the hate, the jealousy, the anxiety, all of those things. And we'll do everything in our power to sweep them under the carpet, basically avoid them or deny them. But here's the thing. Some of those emotions that you don't want to feel are actually coming from the parts of yourself that you're denying. I'm going to say that again. Some of those emotions that you don't want to feel are there because there's parts of yourself that you're denying. I'll just say it slightly differently. So what do I actually mean by that? We all have a multitude of different facets to our personality. Some of that is just humanity, some of it's our upbringing, some of it's conditioning. There's a whole bunch of reasons, but we have a huge amount of different parts to ourselves, or different facets to ourselves. And, you know, certainly if you're on the personal development journey, you know, you want to focus on the things, the person that you want to be, the person you want to develop into. And so in doing that, we kind of push away all that stuff that we go, well, that's not who I want to be. And I did this for a while. And, you know, it's a little bit like the pendulum swing. You know, you're kind of in this space and you're not really quite sure if you like who you are or what's going on or how you're behaving or how you're showing up in the world. And so on your personal development journey, you kind of move yourself into this other space and you say, well, I want to be this person. And in doing so, you kind of block all of the other. You're like, yeah, nah, that's not who I want to be. This is who I want to be. And so you draw a line between different facets of yourself. And so when we do that, it's like we fracture ourselves. And one of the things I know from personal experience is that, you know, from a long time ago, when we deny parts of ourselves or when things happen and we develop in a way that is unbalanced, it shows up in our world, and it shows up in profound and often very difficult ways. So those denied parts of ourselves, you know, they don't go away. We like to think if we just push them over there, then we can't see them. You know, they're not there. It's a bit like the ostrich, you know, who kind of puts his head in the sand and go, you can't see me, can you? You know, I can't see you, so you can't see me. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that in the human body. And so what happens is these parts of ourselves, whether it's emotions or facets of our personality, maybe baser drives, however you want to phrase it, when we deny those things, they actually get stronger. You know, what we resist persists. What we deny, we see more of. And this is, so what happens then is actually these denied parts kind of fester. And, you know, Caroline was just talking about how that stuff can show up in your body and it can make you ill. You know, this is a well-known fact now. It's not just emotion, but those denied parts of yourself, those parts of you that you're pushing down, they don't have anywhere to go. So they're going to stay in your body. They're going to stay in every single cell of your body, and they're going to do you harm. They also, when you deny yourself, parts of yourself or facets of yourself, they actually create the very emotions that you're trying to escape. So what might some of those parts of ourselves that we really don't want to have a look at, that we label bad and we say, that's not who I am? Well, it is who you are. It might not be how you choose to behave. You might choose not to act on those parts of yourself or to behave from those or to outwardly express those parts of yourself, but there's still a part of you. And true self-acceptance is wholeness. It's about accepting every part of you, even the bits that you maybe don't like, or the bits that you're afraid of, or the bits that you really don't want to know about and that you just want to push down and go, this just isn't me. It's not, I'm going to push it out. I'm not going to be that person. You don't have to behave in that way. You don't have to express it, but it is a part of you. And true acceptance involves embracing the dark side, if you like. You know, those things that we go, that's the horrible stuff. That's bad. I want to be good, you know, and this whole, you know, as I say, with Star Wars, we're taught the good side, the bad side. We live in a world of I always have trouble saying this, relativity, where we have hot and we have cold, we have good, we have bad, we have up, we have down. You know, that's just the physical world that we live in. And so it's what we label, the label that we put on the different parts of ourselves or the different facets of ourselves, determine whether we embrace those things or whether we try and escape them. So some of the things that we might want to deny, particularly if we want to show up as a loving, kind, fully developed, you know, person who's shaping the world or even our own worlds in the way that we want to see them, we might deny parts of ourselves such as, you know, the aggressive part of ourselves, the lustful part of ourselves, the vengeful part of ourselves, the part that's greedy, the part that maybe has a desire to hurt others. You can call it sadism, but you know, it's that we all have these parts. You know, in order for, we're well-rounded, just the same as we live in a world of relativity where there's hot and there's cold. We all have what we might call good and bad. It's just a fact. And so self-acceptance involves embracing those things. And I said at the beginning, you know, obviously I recognize that it's the anniversary of 9/11, and we're looking out into our world and we're seeing and we're remembering events where people were perhaps cruel, or people have behaved in a way that we wouldn't, that we find abhorrent, that we, you know, that has caused tragedy and all of those things. And getting really real about those things in ourselves. It's very easy to separate ourselves when we see events outside of ourselves that we label bad. Not that in anybody's book you can say that bombing and the death of people is good, but it is, you know, a determination that we make as a society or as an individual. Somebody may have a different judgment, but it's very difficult. It's very easy for us to separate ourselves from the evil that we see outside of ourselves and go, well, I'm not like that. And no, you're not. But there are parts of all of us that have the potential to be destructive, to be greedy, to be vengeful, to be aggressive, you know, to be sadistic. You might not choose to act on those parts of yourself that you've labeled bad, but accepting, I'm just reading of what I have my notes here, but accepting them as a part of yourself leads to wholeness. It leads to balance. I remember going a few years ago, I went to see Dr. John Demartini. He does a breakthrough experience. And one of the things he talks really a lot about is his idea, I won't call it a fact because, you know, like anything, it's open to interpretation and whether it feels true for you. But he talked a lot about that our universe and our world is always striving for balance. You know, we've got the relativity, we've got the hot and we've got the cold, but that all things exist in equal measures all of the time, that the world is always looking to balance itself. And so when we look at something like 9/11, for example, I'm just going to use it as an example, and we see this abhorrent thing, we don't recognize that at the same time there's a lot of wonderful things happening, you know, with the same intensity, maybe not in the same space, but, you know, close by. And so this need for balance, when we embrace the qualities that we've labeled good and the qualities that we've labeled bad, we bring ourselves into balance. In a world that's always trying to balance itself, if we are denying the not so nice parts of ourselves or the parts of ourselves that we're labeling bad, as I said at the beginning, what we resist persists. What we deny shows up somewhere else. Then the way to bring more balance to the world is to bring more balance to ourselves. If we take the view that says everything is always in balance, then if we're denying the bad and always doing the good, the bad's got to pop up somewhere else, yeah? Let me just have a look at these comments. Cheryl's just saying, we are all perfectly imperfect. That's the beauty of our existence, yeah. Caroline's saying, integration of all parts of us, not an easy task. Our programming is so tenacious. It absolutely is, Caroline. And we're just like, when we see ourselves, you know, you get those thoughts that go through your head, yeah? Well, it does for me. You know, I'll put my hand up and say, you know, I have thoughts sometimes that are quite shocking. They come through my mind and I think, oh my goodness, where did that come from? Oh, better not let anybody hear me say that or hear that thought come out of my mouth. But you know what? It's okay. You know, just allow it to be. Cheryl's saying 9/11 just gives me actual chills. Just remembering the moments it all transpires, it always brings tears to my eyes. Changed us all forever. Yeah, it did. And I think, you know, a little bit like other events in history, we all remember where we were. I was in New Zealand, you know, I was watching the TV all day as it came on the news, you know, and it was just horrendous to see, just absolutely horrific. And I think for those of us that see ourselves as good, and I'm not saying that you're not, because, you know, there is good and bad. We do decide where the line is between good and bad, and that's an individual thing. But it's very easy for us to separate ourselves and say, oh, I'd never do that. I'd never be like that. And no, you wouldn't. You would never show up in the world like that. You would never act from those feelings or from those thoughts. Not that you would ever imagine that you're going to fly a plane into a building. I'm not talking about that. But at a lesser level, we all have these parts of ourselves that produce thoughts and emotions, anger. You know, you look at somebody and you can get to the point where you're so angry you want to punch them in the face, yeah? You're not going to do it because you've decided who you want to be out there in the world, but it's still a part of you. And it's important that you recognize that you're having that moment, that you're having that anger. What's going on here? You know, what's happening? Stephen's just saying, my mind is like a bad neighborhood. I don't like to go there often, from Jack Canfield. Yeah. Yes, mine too. But, you know, again, it's about embracing that side, allowing those thoughts to come through, recognizing them, maybe thinking about where they're from, but just accepting and allowing them to be, and embracing it as part of yourself, because when you push it away, it's going to come back. It's going to keep coming back, and you're going to be out of balance. You're trying so hard to be this good person all the time that you're denying huge parts of yourself that have enormous strength and that have the passion and the drive and the excitement. And you know, you can turn your anger into passion, you can turn it into drive, you can turn it into caring for other people. You can take these parts of yourself that you're labeling as bad, when you embrace them and you accept them, they become less scary. They're not something to be afraid of anymore. You can utilize them in a way that is empowering and powerful in your life and the lives of the people around you. When we're trying to escape it, it's like we're afraid of it. It's like, I mustn't acknowledge it. I mustn't see it. I've got to deny it. And so it follows us. It chases us, you know. So what I wanted to talk really about, the self-acceptance and embracing the dark side, is about bringing balance. If we look at the fact, if we say the world is always striving for balance, then what's the best thing that we can do in our own lives? Bring balance. And it's a funny one. When I was sort of preparing for this today, I was like, okay, so where is this kind of going? And really, this was the nugget. This was the key that came out of it, was this idea that, and I wrote this in the top here, I said, it's not what we do, but the energy behind what we do that impacts reality, and not just our reality. So if we are denying a part of ourselves, in some way we're hurting ourselves. You know, in some ways we've actually been quite cruel to ourselves. We're going, I don't like this part of you. So there's not much that's accepting about that. You're actually rejecting yourself. That's not going to lead to wholeness. It's not going to lead to balance. It's not going to lead to fulfillment. And we're so busy trying not to look at those parts of ourselves that we find difficult to look at, you know, that we're rejecting ourselves without even realizing. You know, it's not even the self-talk, which we can kind of hook into. We can go, well, you know, I'm telling myself that, you know, my hair looks crap today, or, you know, I look fat in this outfit, or, you know, you're just useless. And, you know, those things that can go on in the background, but we can begin to recognize those things. We don't always recognize that we're denying these super powerful, strong, equally important parts of ourselves, and that in doing so, we're rejecting ourselves day in and day out. And it's just saying, my thoughts come back at the most inconvenient times. Well, yeah, because the moment that you maybe take your awareness from this desire to always show up as the person that you want to be, and the practice that you've had, and you've practiced it and you've practiced it and you've practiced it, yeah, so that you'll automatically behave in a way that reflects who you choose to be out there in the world. But the moment you let your guard down for a second, those other parts that you've rejected are like, hello, you forgot about me. And they come back and they bite you because they're still there. And the only way they're going to lose their power in your life, or reduce their power in your life and stop popping in those inconvenient moments when you really want to show up as this lovely person, and actually all you want to do is smack somebody in the head. Integrate them. Accept them, make them a part of yourself, embrace them, show them love, show them compassion, show them Acceptance, because they're a part of you, and without them, you're not whole. You're not as strong, as powerful, as free as you could be. And my message is about power and freedom. So empowering yourself, finding the freedom in yourself, freedom from the past, freedom from the things that you've labeled bad, freedom from other the layers of what I call other peopleness that sits on the top of you. This is about freeing yourself so that you can live your best life. You can harness the power that you have inside of you, the power of choice, to live free of conditioning and the things that are going to impact your ability to create the life you want. And if you're rejecting a part of yourself, it's impacting on your ability to create the life you want. You're missing a whole bunch of skills. You're missing a whole bunch of power. You're missing a whole bunch of amazingness. And so that's, this is my core message. And what I wanted to do today was to highlight something that we do on our journey to, becoming more of who we want to be. And, sometimes I talk about it, it's a bit like peeling an onion, you peel off the layers of the things that don't reflect who you are, and we kind of chuck those things away. And that's good. There's other peopleness, there's other beliefs, there's other impressions and conditioning that we've taken on that actually aren't ours. And they're weighing us down. We can get rid of those. We can shed those like a skin. But at the core, you are a whole rounded person, good, bad, and ugly, as Cheryl says. We've all got it. And so when we can embrace it and allow it to be and accept it as part of ourselves, it's not easy, yeah? You choose the thoughts, yes, and you choose the behaviors. But when you just sweep away the other parts of yourself that still exist and you refuse to look at them, some of those parts, or some of those words or thoughts or feelings that are coming through, some of them are based on stuff from other people, but some of them are also just a part of our humanity. And whilst you may want to choose different thoughts, what I will say is that those negative thoughts, what we're calling bad, those parts of ourselves that we often deny, they have powerful, powerful messages for us. They let us know what still needs to be healed. Those times where something happens and it triggers an emotion and you say, that's a negative emotion, that's not who I want to be, what's going on here? Those times where we avoid people, we're a mirror. Other people are a mirror for us. And so the things that trigger emotions in us, what is happening inside of us that's created this trigger? What exists in us that we're not looking at, that we can begin to integrate, that we can have a look at, that we can peel back the layers of, that we can accept and embrace and show compassion to, so that we can heal. So if you're always denying the feelings, the emotions that you don't want to feel, the ones that you call bad, or the parts of yourself that are maybe vengeful or, angry, or, whatever the thing is that most impacts you, if you're denying those things, you're missing a whole bunch of messages. Acceptance and embracing all of yourself means that you bring everything into alignment. And then you get all the strengths and all the wonder of everything at your disposal. Things you label bad are blessings. There's blessings hidden in there. There's messages hidden in there. There's strength hidden in there. So what could you maybe have a look at? What parts of yourself might you be denying, that if you were to turn around and embrace that part of yourself and accept that part of yourself, how could that help you in your life? So how could you turn those parts of yourself around and harness the strengths within them? Because they seriously do lose their power. They lose their ability, like this with the scorpion with the sting in the tail. It's like when you accept and embrace those parts of yourself that you don't like, you kind of neutralize them. And instead of jumping up and biting you at the worst possible moment or making you sick, impacting on yourself on your body and your mind at a cellular level, making you tired, making you exhausted. Instead, there's a lightness, there's a freedom. You're allowing them to be. You're not trapping things, you're not pushing things down, you're not making them bigger, because the things that we resist persist. The things that we deny show up somewhere else. So if we deny those parts of ourselves, they might show up as illness. They might show up as people who get in our face and trigger us. They might show up in events in the world that are catastrophic. So the movement to personal development and the movement to a better world or better people for our own development, to become, more spiritual, more enlightened, more aware, all of those things. If in the process we are denying the parts of ourselves that are equally important and equally valid, that's going to show up somewhere else, yeah? Bringing yourself into balance also begins to bring the world into balance. And if you want to see a better world, a more balanced world, then, as Mahatma Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. It's not just about becoming this amazing person who's spiritual and enlightened. It's also about embracing and accepting those parts of yourself that maybe you've been denying. That's where the true balance comes from. But in those times where you do think about yourself and you do think about who you are and you do connect with, the person that you are becoming, bring some awareness to those thoughts, those darker thoughts, or what you might label as darker thoughts. Bring some awareness to some of that stuff. Let it come to the front of your mind. Have a look at it. It can be scary, yeah? But have a look at it, because there's messages in there. There's a ton of good stuff in there. That's where so much of your power actually resides. Lightness and the dark. You can choose to be a light version of yourself out there in the world. You can choose how you want to be in the world, how you express yourself, how you act, what your behavior is. But as I said a little bit earlier on, and I've got at the top of this live, and when you're embracing the dark side, it's not about what we do, but the energy behind what we do that impacts reality. We talk about the law of attraction. It's not just the actions you take, it's what the motivation is, the energy behind it. And so if there's an energy of suppression, an energy of denial, an energy of rejection and non-acceptance, it's going to impact your reality. It's going to impact the reality of the people around you. So inclusion, acceptance, embrace, bring it all in, accept it all, find the beauty even in those parts of yourself or those areas of your life that you think that is just bad. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to be jealous. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to experience those things. These are the emotions that you want to escape. But those emotions are coming from somewhere. And unless you embrace those emotions and you look at them, you don't have to step into them and, make them bigger. But you need to be aware of them. You need to accept them, allow them to be. Look at where they're coming from. And say, this might be a step too far. I love you. Thank you for showing me who I am. Thank you for showing me those parts of myself that I was unaware of or that I was denying. Thank you for the opportunity for me to start to accept myself more fully. Because rejection breeds rejection. Acceptance breeds acceptance. It builds positivity. It brings joy. It brings opportunities. It brings all of the things that you want to you. And the other thing is that if we deny these things in ourselves, how do we deal with them in other people? because other people aren't necessarily going to show up in the world the way that you choose to. They'll find their own balance. They'll have their own set of values and their own definition of where their line is and what's okay for them and what's not okay. And some of those things don't look very pretty. It doesn't make them a bad person necessarily. It just means maybe they're being a bit more honest about some part of themselves, or they're doing you the honor of showing you some part of themselves that maybe you're afraid to show or don't want to show or are denying. Whatever it is for you. There's lots of ways to look at this, but fundamentally this is about embracing the dark side, because as you embrace the dark side, it just brings more fullness, more wholeness, more wellness, more freedom, more power, more strength, more joy, more love, more of everything that you actually want. You bring all of yourself into alignment and into balance. And then you're going forward in one direction. There's not part of you that's kind of hanging off the back and you're like, I just don't want to pretend, just going to pretend that's not there. There's a massive, great big load that I'm dragging along, but I'm just going to pretend it's not there and hope it falls off one day. It isn't going to happen. You can try and cut it off, but you can't. It's in every cell of your body. It's you. So the best way is to bring it with you, to put it into your body, to recognize it, to embrace it, to bring compassion, to bring love, to bring all of those things to those parts of yourself that you might be denying. It's freeing. It's empowering. It's not easy. It's kind of scary in a way. But if you can start to do that, start to just allow those thoughts, don't just go, oh gosh, don't want to think that. Let's have a look at what's going on here. Let's have a look at that thought. Wow. I've had some and I've gone, my goodness, like I said at the beginning, I don't want anybody to hear that thought that went through my head. And I sure as hell wouldn't have it coming out of my mouth. That would be horrendous. I mean, you just say that to one person and they'd disappear, wouldn't they? It's just not something you can speak out loud. But it's a part of me. And we've all got it. So anyway, if you can bring your acceptance and love to some of those parts, see how it goes. Have a think about it. The next time one of those thoughts goes through your mind that you think, maybe I don't really want to be that person. I don't want to feel that. I want to escape that feeling, or I want to escape that sort of thought or the energy of it that's in your body. Allow it to be. Have a look at it, embrace it, accept it, and you'll begin to feel lighter. And you'll begin to find that actually things go a little bit more easily. So have a look, give it a try. That's what we're talking about today, self-acceptance part 2 at a really deep level, embracing the dark side, and how by doing that you can bring yourself into balance. And as we bring ourselves into balance, we can help to bring the world into balance. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.